You ever have one of those moments where you watch a situation unfold in front of you, and you know, absolutely know, that the people causing the trouble just picked the worst possible target? That was me, standing on my porch, coffee mug in hand, when three wannabe tough guys in fake uniforms tried to intimidate my wife in our own driveway. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that my wife isn't just some ordinary suburban homeowner. She's a retired Navy SEAL instructor. The same woman who spent years training America's most elite warriors now stood in yoga pants and a hoodie, staring down three men with cheap radios, plastic badges, and one very real pistol. And the second one of them reached for that gun, I knew I was about to witness the kind of justice you can't script. We live in a private community tucked away on the edge of town. When I say private, I mean we own our property outright: house, land, and driveway. There's no legal homeowners association over our lot. We're grandfathered in because our house predates the HOA's existence by about 15 years. But the HOA president, a guy named Richard, who looks like a real-life Monopoly man with his smug grin and oversized belly, absolutely hates that we're independent. He's been on this crusade for months, trying to force us to voluntarily join his little regime. First, it was letters in the mailbox about community standards. Then it was fake fines taped to our door. When those didn't work, he sent compliance officers, a fancy word for bored neighbors wearing safety vests, who tried to lecture us about where we parked. And when none of that worked, Richard escalated to something far dumber. It was a Saturday morning. I was sipping coffee, reading the paper on the porch. My wife Claire had just come back from her run. She was standing in the driveway stretching when I heard the crunch of gravel. Up rolled an SUV with Community Safety Division plastered down the side in cheap vinyl letters. Three men climbed out, all dressed in black tactical-looking uniforms. They had duty belts, radios clipped to their shoulders, shiny badges that said HOA Police. I nearly spit out my coffee laughing. "Ma'am," the leader barked, striding up to my wife, "You're in violation of community law. You need to come with us." Community law. Let that sink in. These guys were cosplaying cops in my property like they were running their own little banana republic. Claire straightened up slowly, her face perfectly calm. I recognized the look instantly. It was the same expression I'd seen when she ran live-fire drills with recruits, controlled, calculating, dangerous. "What exactly do you think you're enforcing?" she asked, voice steady as stone. "Failure to comply with HOA regulations," the man sneered. "You're trespassing on HOA land." Step toward the vehicle, trespassing, on our own driveway. That's when I set my mug down, because I knew things were about to go south fast. The second gangman, a wiry guy with shifty eyes, reached for his hip. My stomach dropped as I saw the grip of a pistol clearing the holster. Not a toy, a real firearm. Now, here's the thing. Drawing a gun. My wife was already a death wish. But drawing a gun on this particular woman, a woman who trained Navy SEALs in hand-to-hand combat, weapons disarmament, and close-quarters battle, was like stepping into a cage with a lion while covered in barbecue sauce. The moment his finger brushed the trigger guard, Claire moved. It was so fast I almost missed it. She pivoted, grabbed his wrist, twisted it upward with one fluid motion, and the gun clattered to the asphalt. Before the man could even gasp, she had him face down on the ground, arm locked behind his back. The leader shouted and lunged, but she sidestepped, drove her knee into his stomach, and sent him sprawling. The third guy froze, hands in the air, eyes wide like he'd just realized they weren't playing dress-up anymore. The entire thing took less than 10 seconds. 10 seconds and three armed wannabes were either on the ground or too terrified to move. Claire leaned down just enough for the man under her knee to hear. Her voice was quiet, lethal. "You point a gun at me on my own property again, and you won't be walking away. You understand?" The man whimpered. While Claire had things under control, I dialed 911. "Yeah," I told the dispatcher calmly. "We've got 3 men impersonating police officers, one armed, attempting to detain my wife on our private property. My wife has disarmed one of them. You might want to send some actual officers before this gets uglier." Within minutes, Sirens echoed through the neighborhood. Squad cars pulled up, real officers jumping out with weapons drawn only to freeze when they saw the scene, two men groaning on the ground. One standing stiff with his hands high, and my wife casually holding a confiscated pistol like she'd just picked up a toy. The cops knew her. Most people in law enforcement around here did. When the senior officer spotted Claire, his entire demeanor shifted. "Ma'am," he said, lowering his weapon. "I'm guessing they didn't know who they were dealing with." "Clearly not," she replied, handing him the pistol like it was nothing more than a kitchen spatula. The fake cops were cuffed and stuffed into squad cars. Turns out they were just local guys Richard had hired as private security. The badges were ordered online. The SUV was leased. The gun, unregistered. Impersonating. Law enforcement is a felony. Brandishing a firearm on private property, another felony. Conspiracy to commit unlawful detainment. Charges stacked up faster than Richard could sputter excuses. And when the police dragged Richard out of his cushy HOA office later that day, red-faced and screaming about community law, I nearly fell over laughing. Word spread like wildfire. Residents who'd once been too scared to defy Richard suddenly found their voices. They flooded the next town meeting, demanding the HOA board resign, facing lawsuits, police investigations, and the fact that their president was now facing multiple felony charges. The entire board folded within a week. The HOA that had ruled over the neighborhood like a petty dictatorship was dissolved. People planted gardens, parked boats in their driveways, painted their shutters wild colors. Freedom bloomed like spring. And as for Richard, he's still awaiting trial. Last I heard, he tried to claim sovereign citizen status in court. The judge laughed him out of the room. That night, after the chaos had died down, Claire and I sat on the porch again. The stars were out, the air was calm. My wife, this woman who had just dismantled 3 armed men in under 10 seconds, sipped her tea like nothing had happened. I looked at her and shook my head. You didn't have to go that hard on them," she smirked. "They drew a gun on me. I went easy." And that's when I realized the full truth. These fake cops thought they were predators, swaggering into our driveway with their plastic badges and power trips. But predators don't fare well when they mistake lions for sheep. Entitled people. HOA tyrants, fake cops, it's all the same disease. They think rules don't apply to them. They think intimidation makes them powerful. They think the world bends to their will. But every so often, they push too far. They draw a gun on the wrong person. They trespass on the wrong driveway. They forget that beneath the yoga pants and hoodie, there might just be a Navy SEALs instructor, waiting to remind them how fragile their delusions of power really are. So, if you're ever tempted to play cop for your HOA, don't, because you never know who you're really messing with. Asterisk, this story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.